Have you ever seen a picture of a place that looks like it just stopped? Not a ruin from centuries ago, but a modern city that looks like everyone vanished overnight, leaving everything behind to be encased in ice? Well, today we're diving into the haunting story of one such place, Vorkuta.
I mean, that's the big question, isn't it? It just sounds impossible. How does an entire city full of apartment buildings, theaters, and schools get flash frozen in time? To get to the bottom of this, we've got to travel to one of the most brutal, unforgiving places on the entire planet.
We're headed to the Russian Arctic. This is a land of, well, almost nothing. Just endless frozen tundra where the ground is solid ice year-round and the sun can disappear for weeks at a time. You see, Vorkuta wasn't just built in the cold. In a way, it was built from the cold. So that brings us to the first most obvious question. Why? Seriously, why would anyone look at a place as hostile to human life and think, yeah, let's build a city right here? It seems to go against all common sense. Let's just try to wrap our heads around how extreme this is. We are way, way north of the Arctic Circle. The ground is permafrost, which means it's frozen solid, like a block of concrete, all the time. Temperatures can hit minus 50 degrees Celsius. That's about minus 58 Fahrenheit. And then there's the polar night, where for months, the sun just doesn't rise. At all. Just surviving here is a full-time job, let alone building a community. So the reason for this impossible city, it wasn't something you could see on the surface. No, it was buried deep under all that ice. It was a secret that would power an entire empire, but it would be paid for in human lives. Okay, picture this. It's the 1930s, and the Soviet Union is in a mad dash to industrialize. It needs power. And it needs it fast for its factories, its railways, its growing military. And then geologists find it. A gigantic deposit of some of the best coal in the world, right under the frozen ground of Vorkuta. This was their black gold. And right there, that was the million-dollar question. You couldn't pay people enough to voluntarily move their families to this frozen, dark wasteland. So the Soviet government needed a different kind of workforce, and their solution is what lies at the heart of Vorkuta's dark story. If people wouldn't go willingly, they would be sent by force. Vorkuta became home to one of the most infamous camps in the entire Gulag system. Political prisoners, captured soldiers, and often just regular folks arrested for next to nothing were packed into trains and shipped here by the tens of thousands. Their new job? Dig coal and build a city, or die trying. And this is the part that's so critical to understand. Officially, Vorkuta was a shining example of Soviet progress, of humanity conquering nature. But the grim reality was that every single building, every railroad tie, every piece of coal was bought with unimaginable human suffering. It was a city built literally on blood and bone. Now, as the decades passed, something really strange started to happen. Vorkuta actually began to look and feel like a normal city. But this was all a facade. It was a city living a double life, hiding a terrible secret right beneath its foundations. You really had these two Vorkutas existing at the same time. Above ground, especially after World War II, you had a real city. The worst of the Gulag camps were closed, and the government started paying huge salaries to attract skilled miners and engineers. They had families, schools, even theaters. But below the surface, frozen in the permafrost, lay the bodies of the countless prisoners who died building it all. A bustling city built on top of a silent, sprawling graveyard. The cruelty of this place was just absolute. Because of the permafrost, digging a proper grave was nearly impossible. So many of the dead were just put in shallow pits or, in some cases, simply left under the snow. They were preserved forever by the very cold that took their lives. The city itself became one giant, unmarked cemetery. For decades, Vorkuta did its job, fueling the Soviet machine. But its entire existence was tied to one political system, one economic model. And when that system started to fall apart, the clock for Vorkuta started ticking down to zero. When the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, it was basically a death sentence for a city like Vorkuta. In a new capitalist Russia, the incredibly expensive and difficult-to-run mines just weren't profitable anymore. So they started closing, one after another. The government encouraged people to leave. And that's when the Great Exodus began. So this is how it actually happens. This is how a city freezes. First, the mines shut down, so the jobs disappear. Then people leave, often in a hurry, leaving behind furniture, pictures on the wall, everything. Soon, entire apartment buildings are empty.
So to save money, the city cuts off the heat and electricity to those empty buildings. And that's when the Arctic moves in. Snow blows through broken windows, and without any heat, ice starts to form on the inside, coating everything in a layer of frost, freezing an entire life in place.
So where does that leave Vorkuta today? Is it completely a ghost town? Well, the truth is a little stranger and maybe even more haunting.
Believe it or not, Vorkuta isn't totally abandoned. A small population of a few thousand people still lives there, clustered together in the city's still functioning center. They go to work, their kids go to school, they live their lives right alongside entire districts of silent, frozen apartment blocks. It's like a living city existing right next to its own ghost.
And at the end of the day, that's really the heart of it, isn't it? When we look at these incredible photos of Vorkuta, we're not just seeing empty buildings. We're seeing the frozen echoes of thousands of lives, of hopes, of a history that was equal parts inspiring and horrifying. It really makes you think about what a city truly is. Ultimately, the story of Vorkuta is a powerful warning. It's a lesson about what can happen when a city's entire reason for being is tied to a single resource, and what happens when the politics and economics that created it suddenly disappear. It makes you wonder, as we build our own world, are we just creating the next Vorkuta?